very serious about your work. So let us start the session of She Rises program. I'm Madhulika Agarwal. I'm a STEP team member and I'll be leading today's session. Now let's start the day by making some norms for the program that we are able to, so that we can create a successful community for everyone. First, to actively engage and listen, being on time always, respecting each other's views, providing genuine feedback, being brutally honest. When in doubt, reach out. Always ask if you have queries. Be patient. I request, please put yourself on mute. When in doubt, reach out. Being patient, supportive, and vulnerable, always inform, complete assignments, and keep your videos on as far as possible because it helps you and us both. Now, coming on the things that we will not do, we will not compare, underestimate, or judge. We will not interrupt or give harsh comments, and not to be late and miss our sessions. Now, today we have a very important lesson on branding, and it is led by Mr. Vivek Verma. Now, Vivek's extensive experience in corporate strategy and his track record of success in building brands have positioned him as a highly sought after consultant and mentor. His consulting business, Upsurge Global, has provided valuable support and guidance to numerous startups and social businesses, enabling them to thrive in a competitive market. With a belief that network hold more value than net worth, Vivek actively engages with various stakeholders in the startup ecosystem, fostering collaboration and driving efficiency. Driven by the genuine curiosity about the human mind and behavior, Vivek has equipped himself with certifications such as the Zenger Miller Leadership Trainer and professionally certified course from the International Coaching Federation, ICF. This commitment to understanding people allows him to bring a unique perspective to his profession and offer invaluable insights to his clients. With his unwavering optimism and passion for a convergence of business and impact, Vivek continues to make a significant impact in the corporate world, both as a consultant and as a prolific writer. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Madhulika, and good afternoon to all the women I see from various parts of the country. And it is wonderful to see, as I see right now, 76 of you who have committed to spend some time with us today. And I'll take you through some learnings that I've had.
Vivek, you
sorry,
are on...
sorry.
Yeah,
just
we have muted everyone, so by mistake you were also muted.
No problem at all. Sorry about that. So I'm saying I'm going to share with you some lessons that I have learned over my 35 years of corporate experience and the last almost a decade of running a consulting business. As you can see in my background, I run a company called Upsurge. It's essentially a management consulting and advisory firm. So I'm just going to share some lessons. And, we'll keep the session interactive. We have 90 minutes. I have a few slides, but if there's something which is kind of a question that is coming up with you, I would suggest that just put it in the chat. I will try and pick up those questions from the chat and try and answer them as we go along. If not, then towards the end, we'll spend some time on a Q&A session. But once again, thank you for joining. And it's so glad to see women leaders who are coming. And that's something which I think the world needs a lot more. And I'm so glad to see as I'm speaking, the number is already over 80 now. So I'm so glad to see 80 of you here. And I hope I'm able to leave some thoughts, some lessons that you take back into your businesses from a branding and communications perspective. So let me start. I'll share my screen and I'll take you through some of the slides that I have put together, essentially focusing on what do you need to do from a branding for your business perspective. 1 minute. I hope you can see my slides. Yeah. So essentially, like I said, the company I run is Upsurge. We're going to spend some time focusing on branding for your business. And I think, it's a very important aspect. And there are lots of myths around branding. There are lots of confusion around branding. And I'll attempt to clarify some of them. I'll attempt to get you some thought process on what I think is branding and what it means and what you should be looking at doing in your business. So I think starting straight away, it's a question of what is it that one, Just let me adjust my screen. Perfect. So I think branding is something which is very, very crucial and a very essential element that we need to have in our business. Are you people still able to hear me and see me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So branding is a very crucial element in our business. And I heard in some of the introductions from a few of you who I was able to hear, and I saw something about logo, and something about helping in the brand. So brand is a combination of a few things, and you see those few things here on the slide. It's essentially a question of what is your logo, what is it that is your strategy, what is it that's the value you're going to be providing to the people you are going to be servicing, what is the design elements from your brand, and we'll talk about these as we go along. One of the most critical pieces when we look at a brand is what is the trust and what is the identity that you are creating in the minds and the eyes of your customers, and how can you really look at the brand per se to help you in creating an identity and creating a trust. And we'll talk about trust a little more detail as we go forward. And then the usefulness of the brand becomes very critical when you start doing advertising and marketing. How do you take that as a communication to the rest of the world? And that's a combination of all that you see here on the slide is what is a brand. Sometimes people get confused that brand is just the logo, brand is just the advertising. It's not actually, it's a combination of all of these things, and each element is a very, very important element. And we'll spend some time on each of the elements so that you understand that when you build a brand strategy for your business, it's a comprehensive brand strategy and it's not lacking in any of the areas. So with that, if we were to kind of deep dive and start talking about, like I said, building trust and customer loyalty, ultimately, whatever we do in our business is about building trust. Our customers will start working with us. Our customers will start dealing with us when they trust us, and that's the base of a human nature, that we only work with people who we trust, and that trust will help build customer loyalty. Many of you may have heard of these terms like customer life cycle value, what customer lifetime value, LTV as it's called. So if I have to build a lifetime value, I need to have the customer with me for lifetime. And I'll like to take a break here and say congratulations, we have just crossed the 100 people mark here. So fantastic and well done. So that customer loyalty will come if the customer is with us for a long time. And that's when we will really realize the full potential lifetime value of the customer. And hence, this is a very important cycle. If we build trust, we build loyalty. If we build loyalty, we get the full value from the customer. And if we get full value from the customer, that's when we'll really make a profitable business. And that's what we are all here ultimately to do. Now, it's a question of how do we create a mechanism by which whatever we do has to be consistently meeting the expectations of the customer. And that is how the trust in the brand grows. And if we have to do this over a period of time, that is what is building a brand. That is when, today I'm sure if we were to ask, what are the first few things that come to your mind when you talk about a brand, let's say like Tata, and trust will be an important element. Now, they have done this over a long period of time, and I'll showcase a few case studies of successful brands and some not so successful brands as we go forward. But as a brand, it is our requirement to really focus on building this on a consistent manner. And the way we do it is to have the quality, needless to say, I'm sure you all know this and you all understand this. It's not like any rocket science here, but the quality of the product and services we provide is a very key element of how we are building our brand. A third-party positive reviews, and I was very happy to hear the last introduction, where 250 books or photo books have been done, and immediately you had somebody who kind of came in and said, out of the 257 of them have been done for me, and I'm very happy about it. Now that's a very critical element when we are trying to build a brand, because this kind of positive reviews that the brand receives helps to build the trust. It helps to build the brand, and it takes things to a very, very high level. Similarly, if we were to look at if we start building trust, the cost quality ratio, it's a very, very important parameter to keep in mind, that you can't go wrong on either of the two. If you are very, very cost conscious and that starts having an impact on the quality of the work you're doing, that's a problem. And if you become way too conscious on quality and kind of leave the cost out of the element, then that will also become a problem, because we need to balance the customer loyalty and the profitability, because ultimately you will hear this line a few times from me during the course of the presentation today, that the only business of a business is to do business. And sometimes this line is not very well understood by a lot of people. They think that we get carried away by our passion, we get carried away by various other things. But I think the key thing to keep in mind is that the only business of a business is to do business. So if we are getting stuck anywhere, we have to go back to this line and say, whatever we are doing, is it making business sense? And hence cost equality ratio is a very important piece. The brand trust is all about customer service, and service is both quality and speed. And again, the important piece to keep in mind is both the quality, but at the same time, the speed. I can't afford to say that I will serve in a quality manner, but it will take very long, or I will serve very quickly, but the service will be very bad. So it has to be a balance. How brands handle their business from a political or a philanthropic perspective. And this is very important in today's world. Today the world is a lot more social. And today, as an ecosystem, there's so much going on around us, both from a social perspective and from a political perspective and from a sustainability perspective. So how are we doing things which are kind of helping manage these angles is a very important piece to build brand. Many fantastic brands were not able to do because they didn't look at what the social impacts of their brand was. And I'm sure many of you would have heard the stories of Coke and Pepsi, for example, before the sustainability move came in. So how do we look at that? What can we do to focus on political and philanthropic perspectives also? How a brand treats its employees. Each of our employee is an ambassador of our brand. Sometimes in our zeal to focus on the customer, we forget that we also have employees, and each of them is actually conveying and radiating our brand to the world. So if we are able to remember that, be conscious of that and work on that, I think it helps to build trust. How customers data is secure. This, I think, is a very critical piece. We keep hearing about it today in the news every once in a while, that somebody had a data leak and that's caused a phenomenal problem. Last but not the least is today, everything is about a customer experience. At one point of time, you could identify saying, I'm a product company or I'm a service company. Today, it's all about customer experience. It doesn't matter you're a product company or you're a service company. In either case, the customer is looking for an experience. Even if I'm selling a car, which is a product, I want the customer experience of when he or she walks into the showroom. How was the experience? How was the experience dealing with the pre-sales process? How was the experience dealing with the sale process? How was the experience dealing with the post-sale process, with the service process? Entire thing is about experience. So we need to focus on these to be able to really focus on building the trust that a brand grows over a period of time. Now, as we said that, if we do this, then it leads to increase in business value over time. And brand is something which is not really a short-term measure. Brand is something which we are looking at from a long-term perspective. None of us, I'm sure here, have started a business because we want to do this for the next 1 year or 2 years. All of us are here because we want to do this for the foreseeable future. And that could be 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. Some of us may be involved in business which has been running for the last 20 years, 50 years, if it's been a ancestral business or business that was handed over to us by our past generations. So it's about creating, brand is associated with really creating value over a period of time. And I think that's where the key comes in, that, if we want to build this over a long period of time, from a strategy perspective, we need to focus on what is it that we want to do? What are our core values as an organization, as a business? What is it that we want to do? Why are we here? If some of you know the theory of the purpose, this is a key element there. And I'm also one of the hats I wear is of a curator for TEDx Hyderabad. There's a very popular author and a TED speaker called Simon Sinek, Simonsinek, Simon Sinek, who talks about what's the purpose of your existence, what's the purpose of your business, what's the purpose of your organization. And this is really defining that. And I would really strongly urge each of you to go back. And if you haven't got this, some of you may already have it, in which case it's fantastic. But if some of you haven't developed it as yet, what are the core values that you have for your business? Because that will play a very phenomenal role in the brand you're trying to build. And it will become a very critical element of the brand strategy that you will develop. What are your goals? Is innovation an important core value for you? Is ethics an important core value for you? What do you think about customers? And how do you want to deal with your customers? What do you think about responsibility or teamwork? These are just some examples of what can be core values. For some people, the core values could also be about different elements. It could be about gender, it could be about equity or equality, it could be about awareness. So what is it that your business stands for? And that's a very important starting point for you to start developing a brand strategy. Now, once you've got a core strategy, or I would say core values that you've decided, then you need to really create a brand identity coming out of this strategy, coming out of what is the purpose and what are your core values. Those two being the critical bedrock of your strategy, of your brand, is then you start taking it to say, okay, now I need to create a consistent and a memorable brand identity, which then starts, and this is where the visual elements start to come in. And quite often people get confused with this being the only thing, or this being the starting point of your brand. And some of you who do work in this space will understand that when you talk to a marketing person and ask him to develop a logo for you, one of the first things they're going to ask you is that what's the purpose? What are you wanting to do? What are some core values that you have? Because once you define that, it will start determining what's the design element you need to bring into your brand. What is the logo that you will develop, keeping that in mind? What kind of communication you're going to be having to have done? What kind of behavior your brand should exhibit? Because all of these has to be consistent with the purpose and with your core value. Sometimes there is incongruence between your logo and what you're wanting to do. For example, it's a sustainable brand. Most people will want to look at it revolving around a green color because that's the color you identify with sustainability. So things like that, very subtle but very important elements need to start coming in. If you are a brand which is focusing on trying to really make a difference to other people's lives in a subtle manner, then your design elements need to reflect that. You can't then have a very bold, very colorful logo, because that's not the identity of your brand based on your purpose, based on your core values. So your vision, your mission, your language, and your communication, everything starts emanating from that brand identity you created. So starting point, the cost of repeating, purpose, core values, from where you start getting your brand identity, which means all of these things that you see on the slide here. Once you've got a brand culture, once you've created this identity, then you need to start building that. Identity is a one-time thing. Somebody can help you with a logo and tell you this is what your language should be, this is what your vision and mission statements can be. But it's not a one-time activity. It's not as if you develop it and you stop there. It's a question of how do you build it over a period of time. And when you start building that is when the brand design and the process of crafting your visual identity will come. Somebody may have given you a logo, but that logo now needs to translate into a website. It needs to translate into your communication that you will take out to the world. So first thing that happens is that what is it that these are few things that you need to get. Logo you've got. What color palette, like I mentioned earlier, what colors are you going to look at? And what is the important elements in that color? And I'll again give you a case study towards the end of my slides talking about how you use all of that. What kind of typography are you going to use? What kind of imagery are you going to use? What kind of voice are you using? And I want to just spend a few minutes here on the brand story. Quite often when you are pitching, people will ask you, why did you choose this area? As an entrepreneur, we have a choice to do multiple things. So some of us who may have chosen a jewelry or a marketing activity or something else, why did we choose that? What's the story behind it? And it's very, very important to first identify and acknowledge that that's where it started. And that's where your personal story with the, or personal connect with the brand will be. So I think these elements are what goes into creating the identity of your brand, which is what will start getting communicated to people. And these are very important elements. If you look at any brand strategy, I have been involved in many during my corporate career, and even now for the company I run. Sometimes this document, which covers the voices, the imagery, the typography, color, logo, how to use the logo, can run into 30, 40 pages. What kind of fonts will you use? What font size will you use? What colors will you use? And that becomes that, and people who are building brands are very, very finicky and very passionate about it. If one minor shift in color happens, they will take you to task that that's not the shade. And many of you will understand that, sometimes some of us, especially men, don't understand the nuances of color, but a brand person will tell you that, no, this isn't the right shade of green. It has to be a different shade of green or pink or blue, whatever be the palette that they may have designed. So it's a very important piece in building our brand that we do all of this. And this is something an entrepreneur gets involved. It can't just be left to an external agency, because this is defining your business over a long period of time. And you, as the founder, as the entrepreneur, need to be fully engaged in this activity. Now, once you've created this, yes.
Sorry to disturb you. Before we go ahead, should we pick up some questions on the past?
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
So the floor is open for Q&A. Let's be quick.
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Yes.
The topic is really enlightening and very interesting. So my question, myself, Barsha from Kanpur, my question is, when is a brand called a brand? When do we understand that now my brand is a brand? Is it, supposing I have launched a product in Kanpur, I have done registered a brand name. Now my product is available all around the Kanpur. So now it is a brand, or when my product is present pan India, then it is a brand. How do we understand that now my product is a brand?
What do you think? When do you think is your brand?
In my opinion, when people start recognizing you not only in your hometown, when the larger audience, when the product reaches the larger audience, I believe then the product is a brand.
No, I would like to correct you. Your brand starts when you start considering it a brand. Now that starts because what happens is it's not as if, let's say you started a business. What's your line of business?
I'm doing sustainable handbags, jute and cottons.
Okay. So supposing you're doing these jute and handbags in Kanpur. Okay. And
Yeah.
you started it and you called yourself whatever ABC and you developed the business. You did very well in Kanpur. You know, you've done your business for 1 year and it took you 1 year before you went out of Kanpur. Everybody knows you as ABC in Kanpur.
Yeah.
Now you say you recognize the brand when it becomes national. And that's when you'll start working on it because that's when it's a brand. Now, will you change the name of your brand? Will you change the color of your brand? Will you change any
No.
of those things? No.
No.
So that's the point. So brand starts when you start the business itself. And I'd like to go back to this slide. Your brand actually starts when you start looking at your core values and your purpose. That what is it that is what you want to achieve? What are you planning to do over a period of time? So all of these things will help you to build that brand. So brand starts when you start the journey for your product or your service.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
There's a
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Surbhi, can you please hold for a second? Priyanka Mehta wanted to ask something.
Yes,
If that's
Priyanka.
okay.
Sir, actually, when you're talking about the color palette and the brand identity, but like what we have faced, like over a period of time, at time the using those same colors, say 4, 5 colors, which is there in your brand guideline, it become little boring, maybe for us also, and for the viewers or for our followers in our community. So, should we keep changing or keep on exploring different things on those front?
So my recommendation is you should not change. But having said,
Okay.
to take into consideration what you talked about, which is why it's called a color palette. It's not just one color. It's a question of which colors will I use? Some basic colors of your brand will become critical and visible, but you have adaptations of that which you will do. So if you are a brand and let's say you start developing products, some of which appeal to youth, some of which appeal to elders. Now you may have
Right.
2 variants of the colors that you use, which may not be the main color, but it may be the supplementary colors. So that's why I said it's a 40-page kind of a booklet that you will develop. And if you deal with a marketing consultant, he or she will develop that and give you saying that when you're using it in a indoor scenario, these are the colors to use. This is the way to use it. When you're using it externally, this is how to use it. So there will be variations that will be there. But having said that, I would not recommend that you should keep changing just because it becomes boring. Brand is an identity. What's the color associated with Tata? Any of you can
Blue.
answer?
Blue color, blue.
Black.
Blue and white.
Blue.
It's only
Blue.
blue.
It's
Yeah.
only blue.
Blue.
Blue on a
Blue.
white background. Hasn't
Blue
changed
on-
for decades together. You know, but it does it, but many of you could not answer because they use other color variants too. But the color of Tata logo will always be blue.
Blue.
Or if it's a dark background, it will be white, which is what is called a transparent background. So it will be constant. The core color should be consistent, but you may develop a palette where you have different variations so that you can create some excitement around the brand. But I won't suggest that you should keep changing because then you're losing the whole exercise behind building the brand. And if you go back
Okay.
and research, blue color denotes some things. Each color denotes something. Green denotes something, red denotes something. So that's right. So that gets associated with your brand. Yeah. Okay.
So one more question,
Surbhi-
sir. When you were talking about quality and cost ratio,
Mhm.
but when it actually comes to practical side of it, it gets very difficult to balance this ratio because if you're not taking care of the quality, somewhere the brand is getting impacted.
Correct.
And if you are taking care of the quality, then the sale gets impacted. So at times it's a very tough question on now how to balance this out.
Welcome to the world of entrepreneurship. Who told you it was going to be an easy and a bed of roses? and this is just one of those difficult questions that you're going to be faced with. There are many, many more like this that you have to balance. You're going to be doing the tightrope walk on that, rope. Ki ab kaise, how do I manage the two? But it's meaning on a serious note, it is something that you go back and create a certain parameters of quality. And that's why people say 100% may not be the benchmark. 97% may be the benchmark, because the journey from 97 to 100 is way too expensive and unaffordable for a brand, especially in the early days. Or the other way to look at it is that I have really deep pockets, so I will build the 100%. Even if it means I will go in losses for 2 years, I don't mind, because I'm building a brand from a long-term perspective and I'm okay to let that money go. I have the wherewithal to do it. So these two combinations will help you take that decision, that where do you draw the line? And the last piece is that what does the customer want? Sometimes in our passion, we also go overboard. Customer is happy with a 97% delivery. But in our jest, in our passion, we say, no, usko 99 ही देंगे हम, उसको 100 ही देंगे. Customer बोल रहा है, ठीक है यार, 98% भी दे दोगे मेरे को तो मैं बहुत खुश हूँ, because आज की डेट में I'm only getting 60%. So we have to kind of look at, and like the reason I'm saying it depends is because it depends on which geography you are in, depends on which product you are in, depends on where on the evolution cycle you are. So these decisions will vary based on that. And the last is about the money. These three parameters, and do I have the money, or I am a bootstrap startup and I don't have the bandwidth to do it. मेरे को पहले market validation करना है. I can do it with 98%. I don't need to wait for 100%.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
We'll have one more question by Surbhi Manocha, and then we'll move forward. Surbhi, yeah.
Sure.
Shweta, we'll give the chance to you. Wait, yeah.
Good afternoon,
Can I
sir.
ask one question, please?
Sir, how
We'll take Surbhi's question. The rest we'll take when we take questions afterwards. Yeah, sure. Yes, Surbhi.
Thank you, sir. So how do we create a brand recall in the initial 6 months? Because I think the initial time is more about a brand recall than revenue generation. And if you are a lean bootstrap, what is the best way would you suggest going in for things like social media on a low budget, or going for word of mouth, or print media?
So I'll
What would be the best
yeah.
way?
So Surbhi, I'll request you hold to your question. We'll come back to it. If it isn't answered in the next few slides, then I'll answer that towards the end, because some of it that you are asking, I'm talking about in the future slides. So let's go through that, but keep your question with you. If you have not got the answer, then at the end, we'll address this. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's move ahead with the slides, because some of the questions, some of you may be answered in the slides I have ahead. So if there's something really urgent that you think, you ask that question when we take these question breaks. Otherwise, towards the end, I think a lot of your questions may get answered. Now,
So,
coming back.
Let's do this way, that all the slides that sir has presented till now, we can ask questions related to them. If we have some other questions, we can pick up them later.
Perfect. So if we've got this brand design, which is our visual identity in place, because that's a very important piece. That's a tangible, that's something people will see. And in some cases, people will touch and feel. So this identity is very critical. But once we've created this identity, we really need to see, and some of the questions some of you asked is, how do you take it to the world? How do you create awareness? How do you create a reach that we take to the world? Because that's the next purpose that comes in. And that's where, again, some homework needs to be done by us, that we've defined our purpose. We talked about it already. We've defined our vision. We've defined our brand values. Then we need to start working on what's our target audience. Who is it that we are targeting? Is it the demographic of the target audience? Are they youth? Are they elders? Are they male? Are they from a higher economic strata? Are they middle level strata? So we need to create what in marketing terms is called as a customer persona, the personality of a customer, because I need to understand my target audience brilliantly, because only then my marketing, brand, communication, and all of that can happen. So that target audience identification is very, very important step in the whole brand building that we do. And when we start looking at the communication and social media, everything will come out of this. We need to then look at the landscape. What are the market analysis? Who else is in this space? Because at the end of the day, your product or service is solving a problem, and that's how it should be. You need to know what's the problem you're solving. Your product or service or your startup, what problem are you solving? And today, what is it being done to solve that problem? This could be solved through a competition, or this could be solved through an alternate method. A lot of times people who start a new line of business, let's say when Ola started for the first time, there was no competition, but they still had a competition because people were using bus or local train or some other mode of transport. So what's the market situation today? What's the market analysis? And you need to understand that. You need to create a mechanism to understand the awareness goals. What is the level of awareness in your space in the market? Do people know about it? For example, electronic vehicles today, EVs as we call them. Now, how well do everyone understand EVs? If you go back 3-4 years, many people didn't understand. Whereas today it has changed. It still has a long way to go. But the awareness in the market, you need to know, and how are you going to deal with it? Brand personality, we talked about already. Brand voice, we talked about. One of the other important things when we are talking about the customer mind capture is to create a tagline. Every brand can have a tagline. So if any of you can tell me what's the tagline for Nike as a brand?
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do
right?
it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
So if you develop a very powerful tagline like that, it also helps, because then people start associating not just with the brand, but also with the tagline. And the tagline is conveying a message. The tagline is also conveying the purpose in a certain manner. So that's how you start developing images in the customer mind. If you have clarity on all of these 9 things, this is what is starting to form identity that a customer starts seeing. Once you've built this, it's equally important. Then you need to manage this. It's not a one-time activity. I engaged, did a brainstorming, created a beautiful vision, mission, purpose, goals, market analysis, customer persona. I have to keep on working on it on a continuous basis, because I have to manage and protect the reputation I have created. And that's where, again, some elements we talked about earlier, but many more start coming in. And from a marketing perspective, it is very critical that we go beyond the logo. How many of you have a website? And is that an interactive website? What's the kind of visiting card that we use? Is it physical? Do we have a digital QR code based visiting card or a business card? What kind of brochure, both physical and digital, do we have? Are they conveying the message we want to do? What kind of media? So whether I have a PPT, whether I have a video, what kind of media do I have? Because today, WhatsApp being the most common method of communicating, people ask you, okay, aapka koi ek video ho to bhej dijiye abhi. At that time, you should be able to very quickly pick up something and say, okay, here it is. Social media, somebody talked about. How are your presence on social media? What kind of digital marketing are you doing? Today, this is very, very critical. The whole world is digital. The whole world is virtual. We are all meeting virtually today from multiple cities, 7 or 8 cities, I'm told. So digitally, how are we present? One of the other critical elements is price. If we are talking about a brand which is catering to mass, then the pricing has to reflect that. Sometimes brands go wrong because the brand core value or the brand proposition is something and the pricing reflects something else. I'm a premium brand, but my pricing is very low. And you will be surprised and shocked. And I have had many occasions with my customers who I deal with, where I went and told them, your branding is of a premium product, but your pricing is not wrong. Please double your price. And they come back and argue with me saying, no, that will not work. And 3 months later, when I may meet the founder, quite often their sales have actually doubled. Not because the pricing doubled, but the units also doubled. Because the customer was not perceiving the fact that you are talking about a premium brand, but your pricing is very low. It doesn't work. Customer has a dissonance and they will not associate with you. So quite often it's important to have the pricing right. Customer service we talked about, whether you are a product or service we talked about, employees we talked about. So your brand strategy is going to start reflecting in each of these areas. And it's very, very critical that we elevate the aspects here so that our ultimate aspect of brand will start getting elevated. If we leave any one of these circles, the brand is going to begin to suffer, whether it's employees. And employees, I want to emphasize again and again, because sometimes we forget. And in fact, for the first time, I think in the early 60s or 70s, there used to be a very, very popular travel agency called Rosenbluth Travels. Any one of you who's in the travel space may know. And the founder of that, Hal Rosenbluth, had written a book, and the book was titled Employees Come First. And this is when everyone was saying customer is the king. We need to focus on the customer and everything we do is for the customer. That was a very popular travel agency which was ruling the world. And the only way they did that was because for them, employees came first. And that was the title of his book. Now, I'm not saying that every one of us needs to do the same, but we cannot ignore the employees, because ultimately I'm conveying something through my brand strategy, and somebody meets one of my employees and sees a very different picture or gets a very different impression. It changes the whole thing. So if your brand is conveying trust, if your brand is conveying empathy, then your employees should also be able to convey that. Or if your brand is conveying bold, then your employees should also be able to convey that through their behavior and through their action. So that becomes an important element in terms of when we are developing the brand strategy. And I think one more thing before we take some more questions I want to stress on is that storytelling is a very important element. And as founders, as leaders, as entrepreneurs, we need to have phenomenal storytelling skills, because that's what builds strong emotional connect. Long-term business is going to be dealt on emotional basis. So we need to build that emotional connect. The purpose is clear. And if you go back to that Simon Sinek video that I talked about, he says people don't buy what you sell. People buy why you sell. I want to know.
रेखा एक बारी पहले सुन ले.
रेखा ही नहीं, बाकी
Request
सब.
everyone to please keep yourself on mute.
Yeah, I was going to say रेखा ही नहीं, बाकी सब लोग भी सुन ले. Okay, coming back to so storytelling is a very, very important piece. It builds a emotional connect, and people buy why you sell. They don't buy what you sell. So I'm selling a vacuum cleaner. Now, one is to sell a vacuum cleaner. The other way is to say, I am selling this because this is going to make your life much better. Your house will be cleaner or your car will be cleaner, which will lead to a healthy future for you. Now, that is the future I'm buying. I'm not buying the vacuum cleaner. So if I can take that storytelling to build an emotional connect, that will make a phenomenal difference. Now, how do we do that? It is a question of how do we, the reason why we do this is because your brand awareness, everything needs to, your advertising strategy needs to come from that perspective. What's the exposure you are going to create? What's the influence you're going to create? What's the engagement you're going to create? These three are in the space of creating an awareness. And that's when your social media strategy, your digital marketing strategy, your, where are you going to be visible? Now, if I'm a college, which is looking at undergraduate students, and these are not a premium kind of a college, then I will expose my brand to autos. I'll put the brand name on the back of an auto. Whereas if I am a premium brand selling luxury watches, then I will never do that on the back of an auto. So where is my exposure going to be? What kind of influence I want to create? what kind of engagement I want to create is all part of the brand awareness, depending on what I'm dealing in. And then ultimately it needs to lead to a business. Like I said earlier, the only business of a business is to do business. Ki bhai awareness ho gaya, influence ho gaya, brand is engaging very well, but dhanda nahi aa raha hai. Then we have to go back and see ki, are we creating the right action and conversion mechanism? Is there right call to action? Is the conversion beginning to happen? Because if that's not happening and ultimately it's not leading to money, then we are doing the right thing, but it's not helping. So something needs to be tweaked in your advertising or communication strategy. You know, in many organizations, advertising doesn't exist anymore. They call it marketing and communication, because advertising sometimes people think is a bad word. So it's about communication. It's about creating a strength for your brand so that the identity is increasing and the customer loyalty is increasing, because that's what ultimately we want. And so at this point, I'm happy to kind of take some more questions, and then we'll see what the outcomes of a very strong brand strategy can be. There are some questions.
So my question was exactly what you talked about in the previous slide, that the brand identity has been established, the brand recognition is very good, and people perceive it as a very successful luxury brand. Though we are currently present only in Jaipur, several people come up to us and say, oh, you're a nationwide brand, you're doing so well. But it doesn't translate into the kind of business that the brand recognition and brand value should get us.
So I think the question, Shweta, for you would be that you have to go back and look at your communication and see what is that engagement to action, you know, and there is in the marketing terms, there's a word called the call to action. That am I creating the emotion in the minds of my customer to act? Or am I creating the emotion to become more aware? And if I'm making the emotion to make more aware, then the customer is aware and they know your brand, they know you're a fantastic thing, but there isn't a call to action. I'm not getting the customer to emotionally connect with me and say, okay, if you've liked it, then this is what I want you to do. You know, would you want to talk to me? You know, do you want my person to visit you? Would you like me to schedule a visit for you to visit our factory or our showroom? You know, would you like me to send you a sample of our brochure? Something which is now that, because at that stage, it's a question of the emotional journey. At that stage, you brought the customer to an emotional point where I may be willing to do something. But if you don't ask me to do that something, you've lost the moment. I became aware, but I didn't convert it to something. So you may want to go back and relook at your strategy, that you're obviously doing some things right, which is why, despite being a Jaipur company, people think you're a national brand. Despite you not, being present in many places, they think you're doing a wonderful job, but it's not translating. So, two reasons. One is relook at your communication, and the second would be relook at your pricing, because quite often your communication is going to a class of people who understand but can't afford your brand. And this can work both ways. And what I told you a little earlier was about a company which doubled their price and their sales or number of units went up.
Yes, that registered with me too.
Yeah, so that also I'm a luxury, let's say jewelry brand, okay, and I sell a necklace for 500 rupees. Now, the customer is not able to resonate. He's saying, "यार luxury वाला necklace 500 रुपए में कैसे मिलेगा ये? तो ये तो fake होगा. ये तो इसमें quality खराब होगी." So that all of that dissonance comes in. So if you've created a communication which sees the customer sees your brand as a premium brand, but then they go look at the price, उस पे कोई 300 रुपए का 500 रुपए का है, then there'll be a dissonance.
Got that.
So that also, so pricing from both sides are important. So I would say look at your communication, look at your pricing, and create a call to action if you're struggling with that somewhere.
So in continuation with what just been discussed, is it a good idea to have a range of products with different price points? Is it
Yes.
a good idea?
Yes, it is. And sometimes it's also a good idea to create sub-brands. So what I do is that I understand that customer persona and say 80% of my customers are in that bracket, but there are 20% who are outside that. So for them, I'll create a plus, so if my brand is Upsurge, then I'll create something called Upsurge Plus, or a different name, which is the premium range of Upsurge. So I create a certain sub-brand, and that 20% tomorrow may become 40%, in which case I have a different brand, I have a different identity, my communication for the two become very different.
And the target audience needs to be then
very different.
Then, yeah.
So then you created two brands. But to start with, because you don't want to spend so much money, you may want to create that as a sub-brand. And many people have done this very successfully. So you create a range, so if again, going back to a jewelry, you have a range, so there is a, whatever, for want of better words, a daily use range, special occasion range, and, lifetime kind of a marriage or things like that range. And then you brand them differently because the persona you're looking at is very different. So you can create those sub-brands and look at it differently because the customer personas will start getting identified. At some stage, quite a few companies have actually used this strategy and then created separate companies itself. So they then took the premium out and put it as a separate company, and their marketing, their communication, everything changed because that's a premium brand. Whereas the mass brand continued in a different brand, which it started with.
I have a question which is very similar to this. Like when I started, it was a more upmarket premium section, and then I have added a lesser range. But I have always wondered, how does a consumer see this? The one who wants to associate to more luxury buying, and if the same brand, like you said, you can create another brand, but if you are a new and you don't want to create another segment, it's under the same name, you have another range, like a lesser range or a more premium range. How does a consumer see? Because I feel the ones who want to associate with luxury buying don't really like the lesser range, the ones who don't buy that range. So does it affect your brand or does it affect that label?
It should not, because then your communication strategy should change. So for example, if you started with a luxury brand and then you created a common man's brand.
A lesser range section.
Sorry,
so
sorry
don't
everyone.
communicate.
I'm just stepping in, sir, and the person who's asking questions also. After every few minutes and a few slides, we'll stop for Q&A, and we would request everyone to stick to 1 or 2 questions at that time so that we are able to finish the whole content and everybody is able to get enough from the whole session. So just bear with us. Let's just, every time I think Amita or Madhulika will ask sir to pause and they will open it up for question and answers. Is that okay? Does it work for everyone?
Works for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to close.
Yeah, let's just
close that answer.
This answer. Yeah. Yes, of course.
Just to close this answer. So if you started with a premium brand and then you created a common man's brand, then your communication strategy should change. And every time you communicate, don't communicate the common man communication to that premium customer, because that customer is happy with your brand positioning. He's buying. There is enough transactions that are happening. You're creating this sub brand or a separate brand for a different customer persona.
Yes.
So be aware and don't do a bombarding of every communication, every customer. So when you start creating this
ahead about how you communicate differently to different sections.
So you treat that as a separate brand. It may be a sub brand, but for all practical purposes, consider that to be an independent brand. What's the purpose of that brand? Who is your target audience for that section? What's the pricing for that? Everything we talked about, we need to redo for that section that we are creating. So if we are moving from a common brand to a luxury brand, then we create a new persona. And that's
Right.
where it may lead to a new logo, it may lead to a new color palette, everything will change. Because then we are
Okay.
appealing to a very different customer
Yes.
persona. Yeah.
Yes.
So it will
All
have
right.
to be very different so that you don't
And it has to be
confuse the customer.
communicated differently.
That's it. And you
Right.
don't want to
Okay.
confuse your customer. So different persona has different language and different things that they are hearing. So
All
we'll
right.
proceed and we'll
Yes.
kind of stop in a
Thank you.
while for some more questions. So what are the outcomes if we do all this? What are we going to get? Because ultimately as humans, we want to know कि ये सब करके इतना पैसा लगा के भाई होने क्या वाला है? What am I going to get? What's in it for me? WIIFM, as the world often calls it. So what are the outcomes that we are going to really get if we look at a good brand strategy? And like I said, people do not buy goods and services. They buy relationships, they buy stories, and they buy the magic. It's more an emotional piece that happens. So that's one outcome. If we are able to create the right emotions, the right relations, the right magic that needs to happen, then you know you're doing well. But otherwise, the way to measure this is that your customer loyalty and repeat business should increase. For those of you who are in repeat business, then if your repeat business percentage is 30 or 40, if you build brand, that 30, 40 should start going up to 50, 60. And if that's not happening, then you need to go back and check where are you going wrong. Higher brand recognition, some of you already experienced that. For example, the Jaipur example, we saw that there is a high brand recognition and awareness amongst the target audience. So is that happening? Do people know? Quite often you ask people that, have you heard this brand? And then you'll get the answer saying, no, I don't know who they are. I don't even know. I don't know what they do. So that will tell you whether that's happening or not. Better customer management and higher customer satisfaction. I would suggest that all of you should have a method of doing some kind of a customer satisfaction survey, either along with the sale or on a periodic basis, depending on the kind of business you are in. If you are in a continuous service business, then you may want to do this every quarter or every 6 months. Don't do it too often too, because then the customer is going to get annoyed and bugged saying, yaar, har hafte puchte hain, kya chal raha hai, kya chal raha hai. In 1 week, nothing is going to change. So what are you expecting? So you may want to do it. And if you are in a product sale where a customer buys a product and then doesn't buy for the next 3 years, then you can't wait for that long. So then you may want to do it after the sale. But some method to get feedback is an important, which will tell you whether your brand strategy is working or not. Higher perceived value and differentiation from competition. Clearly, people will start seeing that if your brand is communicating that I am different in these respects. If I am different in my service, then my brand should convey that. And if the customer is getting that message, then I'm doing the right thing. Increase brand equity and reputation. Reputation is very, very important, because ultimately the trust we talked about comes from what kind of a reputation are you building. Last but not the least is that market share will go up. Sales volumes will show. Employees will be feeling a lot better, because I have built a mechanism by which there is synchronization between what my brand stands for, my actions, my behavior, my communication, and my customer understanding that, which will lead to getting better talent. This is a very surprising thing that happens, that when you build a strong brand, which we sometimes think is only for the customer, it actually translates to us getting a lot more employees. I want to work for this company because I love this brand. I love what they're communicating. I love the way they operate. A competitive advantage in your industry, when you start standing out from the rest of the rest of the competitors. And then there is long-term business success. So building this, brand, building the values and everything around the brand will lead to these outcomes. And these are the outcomes we want from a communication strategy, from a brand strategy to do. But that's not always going to be easy. I'm sure many of you may be wondering कि ये सब अच्छी चीजें तो ठीक है boss, but let's come down to the ground reality. सब बोलना is okay. It's good to come on a session on a Saturday afternoon and listen to some things from somebody. Is it going to be easy? Like I said earlier, welcome to the world of entrepreneurship. Welcome to the world of the founders. Nothing is going to be easy. So there are going to be challenges. What are the challenges? And I'm sure you'll identify with many of them. The first one for sure, some of you asked that question, that cash is always going to be a challenge. And this is a question for a lot of people that stays in the mind that I am a startup. I am at the very early stage. I don't have the bandwidth to spend cash. Now, I agree. I understand that it's not going to be easy. But having said that, the beginning of your brand is going to require a certain amount of investment. You may not go out and do TV advertising or newspaper or thing or hoardings. So that kind of a cash, I understand that don't spend. But building your brand, building your brand identity is an expense that is very much required, and you must find a method to build that. But it is going to be a challenge. So how do you find that balance? Thereafter, if you don't do that well, then consistency starts to suffer. I know enough people who every time they send 200 cards for printing, something changes in their visiting card. The logo changes, the colors change. And as a result, the customer is saying, yeah, I'm not able to create a visual identity of this company or a brand. So consistency is important. That whatever we are doing, communicating, both in terms of visuals or in terms of behavior, needs to be clear. We don't have a cluttered brand. It needs to be very clear. The words stand out, the message stands out, and it conveys what you're trying to convey. Clutter is one of the most problematic things. If we don't do it well, then it's a big challenge. Connectivity. How are we connecting? What mediums are we using? What methods are we using to connect to our customer? Are we using the right ones? Because that could be a challenge that people may have. And the last is what kind of communication that we are doing. What is it that we are wanting to communicate? What kind of language are we using? What kind of words are we using? What kind of tonality are we using? What tone are we using to communicate that? And these 5 challenges, the 5 C's, are challenges that you have when you get out to building a brand. And I think Aarti, is it you're wanting to ask a question?
Lady Shruti Chandak has been waiting for a long time.
Okay.
Can we take her question?
Yeah, sure. Shruti.
Please, Shruti, go ahead.
So is it there are 2 Shrutis?
This is regarding the previous slides that we were discussing. Like you told us that you had a client who underrated their products. You told them to just increase the price, underpriced. You told them to just double the price, and it benefited them. So I feel like in this competitive market, how do we do that? Like I'm pricing my products moderately. They're not too low, not too high. But they are actually premium products, since the product that we are providing are of a very good quality, like the fabrics or the embroidery, whatever we are using, we're doing top quality there. No compromise there. No compromise on quality. That's my key mantra from the beginning. So, but then still there are some people who don't mind paying anything. And then there are people who are just continuously, nagging about the price part and tells me that, you're increasing the prices or it's getting so expensive now. So how to deal with that?
So one thing that I'll tell you is that if you are ever getting a pricing objection, if a customer is telling you that your pricing is wrong, it only means one of 2 things. One, you have targeted the customer wrong.
Okay.
I'm building a Mercedes Benz and I'm going to a nano customer. Right.
Yeah.
So that's one possibility. And obviously I'm exaggerating here, but I'm just trying to drive the point. The second is that I haven't created enough value in the mind of the customer. Price is the objection because price is always relative to the value you've created. Now, what happens is in the sales cycle, there is a concept which I learned 30 years ago and I still hold by that, is there is a concept called FAB. FAB.
Okay.
Features, advantages, and benefits. Now, many of us in our products get stuck with features that, like you described right now about your fabric. Those are features.
Right.
Now, we try and think that just because we have good features, the customer will understand everything. Now, welcome to the real world. Customer does not understand your features. Each of your feature translates to an advantage.
Okay.
That because the fabric is of a certain nature, this is the advantage. It will last long.
Right.
Now, even the advantage the customer does not understand. The customer understands the benefit that they are getting. So as a result of this fabric lasting for a long time, the cost that you incur in this is going to come down. So for every product that we have, we need to translate the feature to a benefit and then gauge whether that benefit is being understood by the customer I'm talking to. So I would think that, to your question, the reason why that worked for that brand that I'm talking about is because the customers there were perceiving a certain value.
Right.
Whereas the pricing was not reflecting that, so it was leading to the customer thinking कि ये सब इस price में तो हो ही नहीं सकता है.
Right.
So then they must be cutting corners.
Right.
And they must be doing something which is not inconsistent with the promise they're making, because ये सब इतने price में हो ही नहीं सकता है.
Right.
Meaning, if I'm selling a very good linen shirt, for example, and I say the cost of that shirt is 200 rupees. What's the first thought that comes to your mind?
I mean, if it's
linen ki shirt 200 rupees mein
nahi hoga, pure nahi hoga.
Correct. So that's what I mean. So that's where the consistency needs to come, that, if it's real premium quality, then the pricing has to be right. And if I'm selling it at 2000 rupees, which should be the price of a linen shirt, then am I conveying the value that the customer benefits from that? That this will give you the cool, nature, the whatever, the benefits that the customer gets. So if you're getting a pricing objection, it's only one of two things. You're targeting your customer wrong. So go back to your strategy and focus, create that customer persona, and then reach to the right customer. Or I'm not creating the right value in the minds of my customer, and that's why easiest objection to fall on is price.
Yeah.
That you are
So
very
there's
expensive.
one more question, which is like how to create our brand awareness pan India. Like if you want to do it, like we're coming up with a website soon, but we want the brand should be more known a brand. So
today,
for that, shall we hold like exhibitions pan India, or how to make it a more known brand?
Again, so in your case, probably because you deal in textile and fabric, yes, you will have to do, because people want to touch and feel that. But I can tell you enough brands who are purely online, even in the space of textile and fabric.
Yeah.
So it's a question of who your customer persona is. And I think today the world is a lot more, meaning otherwise the Mintras of the world will not happen, right? Meaning they are the largest category of things they sell are garments.
Yeah.
Which people don't touch or feel. Now, are they in the premium segment?
But not for the premium segment, I guess.
That's right.
They're
Yeah. So that's
more about mass products.
Correct. No, so that's where it depends on what, and there are some mass.
You have to, in that case, launch a range which is at a lower price.
I'm saying even premium ranges, some people have have managed to come up with online channels where they sell. But in these spaces, there's no one size fits all. So coming to your question, what do you need to do to build a national brand? You certainly need to have digital presence. You need to have influencers. You need to have a method by which people can connect with you. And today, with the augmented reality, with the virtual reality, with use of technology, see why do I want to see a luxury? Because I want to try that out and see whether it fits me well, whether I look good in it or not. Now, people are overcoming that today with a virtual reality or an augmented reality. So I can actually, and I don't know if you've seen those. If you haven't, then I would suggest you should go and check that out on YouTube. Many brands today will give you an option. You select a fabric, you select a style, and then you use their demo app, which will actually create, using that fabric, a shirt or a lehenga or whatever garment you're creating. They'll take your picture and they'll actually show you in that garment.
That's
It's
quite a
all
lot of
happening there.
programming.
Yeah, and these are packages which are available. So there are people who do this for as a business. So you can engage with them and they can do this for you. So they can then embed this in your website. If I go to your website, I choose the garment, I choose the style, and the camera takes my picture and then it puts it all together and says, this is how
It's a
you're
very,
going to
very
look.
nice.
And it's
That's a
there.
very, very nice.
It's a business which is happening today. So it's also not even futuristic. It's been around for almost 5-7 years now. And today it's an accepted method of doing business for many people who are into luxury products, into garments, into things like that. So you may want to do a little bit of Google search on that.
Okay.
Sorry, sir.
Thanks.
In continuation to this, but this whole technology, we've been looking at it quite some time, but it's very, very expensive for a brand which has placed, like, it's in a starting stage.
Well,
So
actually, technology is in multiple levels. So if you're finding it very expensive, maybe you're talking to the wrong person, because today this technology, even a lot of college students are working on this technology.
Okay.
So there will be other places, depending on which city are you from. You should look at, if you are looking at this in a Pune or in a Bangalore or in a Hyderabad or in some of these cities, you will find enough people who are going to be able to do this at a much cheaper price.
Okay, yeah, because I am from Lucknow.
Yeah.
And,
So Lucknow, Kanpur, maybe that there are enough people who are doing this, and it's about technology adoption that has happened, so places where there are lots of software professionals, lots of engineering students are doing this as college projects, because this is a very, very critical piece. So just look harder.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Next, please, Aarti Maheshwari, you can go ahead.
Yes, hi.
Yes, Aarti.
So, hello everyone. I'm Aarti Maheshwari from Vadodara, and I can't see Mr. Vivek. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you and I can see you, Aarti. Yeah.
So I have been doing this business 27 years. So I'm basically a visual artist and a communication designer. And
you should be taking this session.
No. Well, I actually then turned my the soon I graduated, I was about to get married, and I got into this thing, finding my correct wedding invite, and I found a big gap where the customization was happening. And somehow, coming from a business family, I started doing the venture more like a entrepreneur, a designer and entrepreneur. So this was the time when we didn't have any Instagram or digital version. I'm talking way back. And now when it is, so I have also evolved during the period, and we have been posting a lot of things on social media, branding. So our business is more about why you sell, the emotional connect. So my question here is to understand about storytelling, what you said. So I have a big debate with myself how to go about it, whether in what medium or what method to connect. Should it be a visual with some questions and answers, or a video on social media, or like, so that is something, because my product is a premier wedding invite and design studio. We've also diversified into a organic clothing brand in the last, when we touched 25 years, we diverse. So now there is this couple of, this both my brand. I'm handling my branding part, though I'm not working as a corporate branding designer, but at least for my both brands, I'm doing the entire designing and the visuals. So, but when it comes to storytelling, I'm not able to understand how to take it.
So the question, Aarti, is that if you are struggling with the storytelling, I suspect that is because you're struggling with the purpose or the core values or something there. Because if those are clear and your customer persona is clear, and like you said, you started the storytelling today saying that I started something else, and then you realize that, the wedding card, and obviously we can get into more detail if we have the time one-on-one, but that's where your story started. Now, if that is the story, then you saw a problem and you started working on finding a solution. So, startup journey is about 4 stages. What's the problem I'm solving? What's the solution I have? Is it a scalable solution? And is it a monetizable solution? The first 3 is the life of an entrepreneur, and the 4th is the life of a startup founder. And I differentiate the 2 because entrepreneur is not equal to startup. Startup is equal to entrepreneur. So entrepreneurial mindset is about problems. So story comes if you have these 3 elements correct. That what was the problem I'm solving? What's the solution I have? And it's a solution which is not a hobby, which is not a lifestyle. It's a scalable business model. So your story comes around that, and you should listen to a lot more videos. How often do you watch a TED Talk?
Not really.
Start doing one TED Talk a day. It's an 18-minute or less talk, because
Okay.
they are people who will come and tell you the best stories. This is a platform, and I'm saying this as a biased person. I run that platform for TEDx Hyderabad, but there is a TEDx Lucknow, there is a TEDx Baroda, there are TEDx in various places, plus YouTube has them from all over the world. Start listening to stories of people so that you can then start developing your story. And story is all that sells. And
Yeah.
each of us has a story. Each of us in our lives have multiple stories. What we don't know is how to tell that story.
Yes.
We
So
need to learn how to tell that.
Sorry. So my understanding that when I share my stories on a social platform, they have to be linked with the text thing, because
It has to be a combination, Aarti, because if you put too much on the poster, then it becomes too cluttered. Sometimes the social media properties may not allow it because it's become too text heavy. So it has to be a right combination. The poster or the graphic needs to convey the key message, and then the details have to be in the write-up, and there has to be a link which takes to a greater. So that call to action is that link. That my poster, the way to look at it is it's a 3-step journey. The poster should force me to read the context with it, and the context with it should force me to click and take me to the link, the website or my product details. And if I've done these 3, then I know that at least I've got the right emotion, the right steps, the right communication, the right customer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, I understand this because every 10 years, our entire clientele changes because
you're very lucky. You're very lucky. It takes 10 years. In a lot of people's business, every 1 year, the clientele changes, or every 2 years, the clientele changes.
So I was a little confused about this generation to talk to them, because so I think
Instagram for
but
this.
Instagram with videos. That is what I understand.
Yeah. Reels. Correct. So it's all about not even long videos. I also am learning this short 60-second, 30-second reels, but generating enough powerful emotion for them to come.
Okay. Thank you.
So should we get ahead with our presentation?
Yes, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
So these are the 5 challenges that most of us, when we are building brands, that we encounter, and we need to kind of work on that, and it's a question of what steps should we take to overcome this. And some of the answers that I was giving are what I'm talking about here on this slide. That if there is a challenge you're facing, it means one of these things is not clear. That have you done a good market research and analysis? Are you fully aware of the market that you're operating in? Because if there are challenges you're getting despite doing everything right, then probably your market research or analysis is not comprehensive, or you haven't done it, or you haven't done it correctly. You need to develop a clear brand strategy, which is which is all what we talked about earlier, that what's the purpose, what are the core values, all of that. We need to foster a culture of brand consistency. If there isn't consistency, then there's a challenge. Monitor and protect the brand reputation. That, and this is very important, especially for brands who are very heavy on social media. What are people talking about my brand? What's the reputation that my brand is enjoying? Are people perceiving it in the manner that I am doing, or are they saying something else? Are there customer dissatisfaction that's on the social media platforms, and how am I dealing with it? Because today the first thing a consumer or a customer does is goes and posts it on social media. I'll just tweet or I'll put it on Instagram and that's it. Your reputation is baking to take a suffering. Measure and evaluate your success. If you're running a race and you don't know you're running 100 meters or a marathon, you don't know where the finish line is. So what is it that will define that my brand has done well? Either it could be in rupee terms, it could be in the satisfaction surveys that you're doing. So where the score is going, what is it that will tell you that my brand is successful? Invest in professional branding support. Some of you who do this business, this is music to your ears, that I tell everyone that you must invest in building the brand. So some expense is required for every single business. And this is the part of the startup kit. Now, that does not mean that that needs to be a few lakhs or a few crores. It could even mean a few thousand rupees, but I need to develop a brand identity. I need to develop a logo. I need to develop a color palette, some basic things I need to engage to take this forward. And some of you are in that business, so you should peer-to-peer reach out and support each other to say, okay, I'll help you there. Encourage employee buy-in. Marketing, branding is as much internal as it is external. It's quite important that you get your employees also to understand, because then in their interactions with the external world, they will also carry the same message. Because if they don't know, then they will not resonate and they will do something else. And that will have a problem from a brand building perspective. Stay flexible and adaptable. We just heard every 10 years, I say every 1 year, the customer is changing. So am I flexible? Am I adaptable? And am I working to create that brand and communication strategy which is adapting to the changing world? Technology is changing. If I was relying only on paper, newspaper ads, then I have to now adapt to digital marketing. Now, digital marketing, SEO logics are changing so rapidly that I need to adapt to that. Whatever I did 1 year ago for my website to be SEO ready is no longer valid. It has changed fully because Google has changed the whole logic, and they will keep changing this every few months because they want you to pay and spend more money. So am I fully on the loop there? And last but not the least is really focus on customer experience, because everything is about experience. And I say here that, when I started my career 35 years ago, customer service was a small department and their job was to only be focused on customer service. Today, yes, who all are part of customer service? CEO to the peon, everyone is part of customer experience, because everyone is playing a role in the customer experience. Most companies don't have a customer service department anymore because everyone is customer service. So customer experience is a very, very important parameter. Now, having said this, let's just look at some brands who've done this right. Some brands who've got this right in terms of core value, in terms of the purpose, in terms of the persona, in terms of the way they have positioned themselves. And when you look at some of the brands in India, I'm sure these will be brands which resonate with you. And again, you look at it here, everything comes into play. The color, the font, the way they are positioned, all of you know all of these brands. They've done phenomenally well in India, and each conveys a very different connotation to a customer. And they have their journey has been phenomenal in trying to build that. Now, when you look at it here, for example, Airtel, when they are looking at a mobile phone, they're looking at the younger generation. And when you look at a Tata as a brand, they are looking to the entire world, and look at the way they are different. Look at the small letter wording. Look at that circle or that symbol on top. It conveys a very different meaning. So it's appealing to different sets of people. So these are some of the examples of very successful brands in India. Some of the smaller brands who don't have that much money like a Tata or a Reliance to build that brand, but having said that, have still built some phenomenal powerful brands. Big Basket, Parle. I don't know how many of you know of a brand called Chai Point. They are present in multiple cities in the country today. All they do is sell chai. Cafe Coffee Day is another phenomenal brand, Dabur. So these are not in the same league as these brands, but have still built very successful brands. And again, conveying a message, different colors, and all of that they reflect. But let's go beyond India and look at the brands. These are again brands which convey very, very strong. You don't need, if you leave the top two, the others don't have any words, but you know who they are because they've created a very, very strong brand. And of course, it's taken them a long time. It's taken them a lot of money, but that's what brand building is all about. Now, everybody in life does not succeed. Many brands have not been able to do it. And let's look at some of those. When you look at global brands, these are brands which have failed. And they failed because one of those things they were not able to stay. So they were not clear on the persona. They didn't. Kodak is a classic example. Many of you would have heard. Nokia is another example that product innovation stopped. And product innovation stopped because as a brand, they stopped communicating in the reverse manner from the customer. It was just that I will tell the world what it is. I'm not listening to what the world is changing to. And then that leads to brands which fail. Let's look at some of our brands in closer to India, meaning some of us growing up in the 80s or so, Onida was the brand from a consumer electronics perspective, especially TV. Owners, pride, neighbors, envy. If any of you remember that line. VPL, very, very powerful brand. Kingfisher in the airline space, Sifi in the telecommunication space. Again, people who've not been able to maintain that consistency and take that. And I think I'll kind of towards the end come to talk about what is it that you need to do. Now, when you go back after this session, what do you need to do to build a strong brand? And here's what I'm kind of creating as a 6-step process that you should do to create a powerful brand and build a brand equity. Craft your core brand values. We talked enough about it. Build awareness. Really find the right medium to create that awareness, whether that is digital media, whether that is talking to people, whether that is pamphlet distribution, whether that is exhibitions, or whether that is creating thought leadership or speaking opportunities where you go and talk about your story. Create a positive brand perception. The people who you're dealing with should get a positive perception about your brand. And how do you do that? Through all the communication that you do. Create loyal bonds, create long relationships with your customer, and then continuously keep improving your customer service. Keep listening to customer, what they are saying, and keep changing things in your business, in your brand, in your product and service, because that's the only way that brand will take it further. And last but not the least is keep engaging. Keep engaging in digital manner, keep engaging in every possible manner with your customers, because an engaged community is what is going to give you a long-term brand equity. Now, just to give you an example, and obviously I can talk about my own brand, and just take you through a few things that how the whole concept that I talk about was applied to my brand. So the vision that I have, I run a management consulting and advisory firm. The vision is to empower entrepreneurs to achieve their true potential and organizational vision by unlocking their possibilities. Now you look at the words there, it is about empowering. It is to achieve their true potential. And I believe that all of us have phenomenal potential. And by unlocking the possibilities, I know what I need to do, but I'm locked, I'm stuck somewhere. And that's where we help. And then some of you who talked about a story, upsurge is an English word, and I'm sure all of you heard the word. It means, a journey which is going up. But then you create a story, which is the upsurge stands for you succeed with upsurge through personal and urgent reorganization, reallocation of resources to address global markets through efficiencies. Now, this is a story I built after I found upsurge as the word. Now, this becomes a powerful story every time I talk to a customer that, oh, okay, what does upsurge mean? They're looking at the English meaning, and I take them through and look at how the proposition aligns with the vision. The whole proposition is about urgent reorganization, reallocation, which comes back to the fact that, unlocking the possibilities or achieving your true potential. It is about global. The company is called Upsurge Global. So there is a global element. And I think it's about efficiencies. And the most important is you succeed. So your success is very, very important. That comes in here. And for those of you who notice the logo here, and I'd like here for some of you to tell me what are the first thing that you notice about the Upsurge logo.
It's about growth.
And what conveys the growth? What
the
conveys
color
the
green.
growth? The color green, okay.
It's about connection.
Yeah.
It's about vastness as well, because it has color blue in it as well.
It's about sustainable growth.
Yes.
Since the green as well.
Growth, vastness, and happiness.
Yeah. Where do you see the happiness?
The smile down.
The smile, right?
Color yellow.
So the color yellow is meant for sunshine, growth. So when you look at, so I have a trademark not just on Upsurge, but also on that G. So you grow in a sustainable manner with smile leading to sunshine. That's the story of the G. Did any of you notice that, the U in Upsurge is small? And
yeah.
Many of you may have thought that that's an odd thing because usually a name of a company or a brand starts with a capital letter, right? What do you think could be the reason for that?
You want to stand out the up from the Upsurge?
Individuality.
Okay, what else?
Because when you start, you are small and then you grow.
Yeah, so the story there is that if you really want to grow, then you have to be small. Your ego has to be small. So if I can make my ego small, that's the first step I take towards my growth. So in Upsurge, you is small and it's more about the surge. Because if you become small, the surge will happen. So for some of you who were asking about story, I hope you're getting a sense of how you build a story, So if I give this card, I know I have 2 minutes of talk time with a customer. And I can just talk about the story for 2 minutes around just the brand. And then it conveys everything that I have here as my vision and proposition. So everything is aligned in that manner with what's the purpose, what's the vision, what's the value proposition, or what is it that value I'm communicating, and how is it being communicated through a logo, through a visual communication, which conveys all of that this is sustainable, this is growth, this is smile, there is sunshine, which is profitability. It's about reducing your ego, because that's an important aspect to do. So that's what I had to share on what is it that you can do to build a brand, to build a successful brand, to take it to the next level. And I know we are at 1:32. I'll be happy to take a few questions.
Sir, Ankita's question is quite worthy. I have the same question in the chat box. Ankita's question.
Yeah, Ankita, what's the question? Why don't you ask me? Because on the chat, I see 45, 50 different comments. So
I'll just read out Ankita's question.
Sure.
She asks, if the brand is already established and getting enough word of mouth, references and walk-ins, already 15-year-old, what are the top 3 branding activities we need to take so that brand is not lost or brand value not reduced? Will personal branding help in this?
So personal branding will help for sure. If you are a founder type of a company, you're not a public listed company, then people associate you as a founder with the company. So personal branding helps for sure. To your other question, if it's a 15-year-old brand which is already doing well, has enough customer engagement, then I think you need to go back and engage with your customer segment to say, what else do the customer expect from your brand? What is the next thing they're looking at from your brand? And you may be surprised that you will get a lot of feedback from people. They may be happy or very satisfied with your current set of offering, but they may have an expectation that you should be doing something ahead. So that's one thing you should do for sure. Second is that you have got into what I would call a comfort zone. The second thing you need to ask is that there may be a larger customer segment who you can appeal to, but somehow you are happy in the segment that you are. So maybe you need to expand that, because if everything is going well, it just means that something is not right. You know, if I'm got the pricing right, if I've got the customer satisfaction right, if I've got everything right, then maybe I haven't got the right customer. I need to expand that. And especially if it's a 15-year-old brand, then maybe it's time for you now to say, okay, if I was only focusing to one geography or 5 geographies, I need to now take it to 50 geographies. If I was only catering to one customer segment, then I need to take it to a larger customer. So I need to find a way out of my comfort zone. So I would think those two would be my advice to somebody whose brand is doing well and has been around for a while.
The second point is actually very right. Expansion is a challenge.
Get out of your comfort zone. You know, you're in your comfort zone.
Urjita Bhalani, please go ahead.
Yes, so in continuation with the same question, I am Dr. Urjita from Baroda. I am a pediatrician by profession, but I've recently started a SMO, that is a site management organization, and it actually bridges the pharma companies to the corporate or hospitals where we can put patients for the drug trials and all. So this is a service industry. So my question was the same, that will the personal branding help in this case? We are already doing the branding for the SMO, but will a personal branding, because a medical professional is associated with this as a co-founder, will it help?
Yes,
Or will
so
it
two
be,
things. Yeah, so two things that will help you, Urjita. One is personal branding, because people want to know the people behind this, and since it's a sensitive space, not just medical, but trials is a very space where people want that trust. The second thing which will help you tremendously is testimonials. So people who have benefited from these trials, because there is a whole lot of mistrust around these trials, right? People think these.
Okay, I'll just clear the air. It is not that we will be programming the data, we will be enrolling, and everything goes back to the pharma or the product people who are going to manage.
No, but you're still, but you're still associating yourself with them. So people will.
Confidential thing. I cannot put it. I mean, like you said, the testimonies cannot be put out.
So you'll have to find a method, because that's an important piece. You are taking me to somebody, and I will come to you because I trust you. And I'm trusting you to take me to the right partner. Now, how do I know that that is happening? So you'll have to find a method within your space to say that, you know, how do I still maintain the confidentiality, but still do a subtle method of conveying that? Because trust is a very important element. So one is, of course, founder personal branding, but it'll have to go beyond personal branding too.
Sir, we have overshooted on our time.
I know.
We take 2-3 more questions.
Sure. I'm okay with that.
Okay. So Nidhi Keshwani from Jaipur.
Hi, sir. I'm Nidhi from Jaipur. First of all, it's a very excellent session, and we have so many takeaways today from today's session. So I just want to ask, basically, I'm an artist, so I used to make paintings and all. And when it started growing, I started an art studio. Then we came into many things. but it is all relevant to the creative part, and it is all relevant to the home decor part, like sculptures, mirrors, and many things. Then, according to the time and according to the demand, we came into many more things like corporate gifting, wedding gifting, and all. So I just want, and it's keep on increasing and increasing. Our work areas is increasing, and because we want to explore many field also. So I just want to ask this: should I do all this under one brand, or should I make some another brand for some things? Because there are so many things under one brand.
So I think if the answer will lie in the fact that is your customer different for each line. If your customer is the same for multiple lines of things that you are doing, then you may not need to create multiple brands. I think if the customer persona is different, because then your communication strategy will differ and everything else will differ. So I think that will determine whether you should do it under one brand or not. The other thing that will make a difference to your answer to this is your availability of funding with you. Meaning, do you have the wherewithal to create a new brand and spend on communication, on branding, on all of that for the new brand? So I think both of these will determine whether you should build, if your customer persona is the same, customer category is the same, then I think you don't need to, at the beginning at least, need to look at developing a separate brand. And creative economy is a big space now.
Yeah.
There are lots of good things happening there.
Because one of the most important key factor of our brand is handmade, and most of the things are hand painted. So that is come under our corporate gifting also, for the wedding gifting also, and for the all the creative things. So that is the main key factor of our brand. So, and customization, whether it is in any field. So, but there are so many things. So I was getting confused with this. Should I go for the another brand? Because all the things are coming under one brand, and the all things are very creative. I mean,
I think at a high level, I don't think you need to, because all of it is under the creative space. You're dealing with the same set of people. So all that I think is not needed at this point of time.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
We take the second last question now, guys. We're shooting sir's time also. Yesha Thakkar, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
Firstly, it was a really informative session. So thank you very much, sir. My question is, in your opinion, in today's times, does a service brand require a face? So I'm basically a wedding decor designer, and we design weddings across the globe. So, and I see a lot of popular wedding designers where the brand is a lot to do with the designer themselves. Whereas whenever we are marketing, we are only marketing our work, and we're only marketing pictures of things that we've done rather than like me as a designer or my team. So in your opinion, is it necessary for there to be a face for in the service industry is what I wanted to know.
So it is necessary to have a face. The face does not need to be that of the founder.
Okay.
The face can be your logo. You know, what you're trying to create is an identity. You know, and I also saw another question on the chat, somebody who's in the coaching space or in the personal L&D space. You know, the question is about what is it that you're wanting to convey. So that needs to convey through a medium, because I'm dealing with a brand. I'm dealing with a personality, and I need to know who can I talk to. And especially if it's in the service space, then most important that it needs to have a face. Today, technology gives you a route to have a robot or a robotic face, and that's still a face. There are enough brands today where you go and you have a bot, and you're talking to a bot. So the face of the brand is the bot, and you can personalize the bot. You know, so the bot can look like a human being, but it's still a face. So to answer your question, there needs to be a face, but does it need to be the founder's face? Not necessary. Some places it could be. In a coaching space, probably it could be, but in a consumer space, it could be avoided too.
Okay.
But there should be a face. There should be a method, because I know who I'm talking to. Some personalization should be there.
Thank
So
you.
we take the last question of the day. I think Shruti Sandalya, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
So, yeah, it was a very interesting session, and I've been very fortunate to have worked with Tatas. In fact, I spearheaded their branding for Trill.
Fantastic.
And the sub brands and how it ties back to the mother brand.
We were talking about some of your work then.
Thank you. So essentially what I'm trying to understand is that, when you start your own business, it's a different ball game altogether. Your personal branding and your product branding, the lines get blurred. After a point, I think people start recognizing you more, and the efficacy of your brand, it starts suffering. So I'm just trying to understand, how do you make sure that when you're putting yourself out there for your brand, when do you need to pull back and make sure that the brand stands on its own without your support?
So I think as long as you are not kind of in your personal branding or in the way you're communicating, taking away from the brand perception or the brand story that you want to convey, it's okay for the two to work together. Where you need to pull back is then when people start seeing you as bigger than the brand, or people start seeing you different than the brand. In either of the two, you need to start asking yourself a question that there seems to be a problem and I need to pull back, because now my branding or my kind of connotation that is in the customer's mind is beginning to have what is called brand dissonance. They are now saying there is two different streams and I don't know, should I follow what the founder is saying or should I follow what the brand is saying? Or I was dealing with the brand, but now the brand seems to be small and the founder seems to be much bigger than the brand. In both those cases, you're damaging the brand and you need to pull back.
Yeah. So I think when the brand starts leaning on you and it doesn't really stand on its own. So I think somewhere that's what's happening. And I feel now
so you need to go back to seeing maybe one of those elements, like I said, that you have to do some work on the brand to say, okay, is the customer persona changed from the time I started? Has the communication changed? Is my call to action not working? Something in that is not working because there's a gap there. There's some dissonance that's coming in there.
So fortunately, it's working really well.
Very
so touch wood.
good.
But I really want the brand to have its own identity and not just, it's not like,
all of us want
Tata is Tata, right?
That's right. That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
All of us want that, our entities are independent and we want that to be bigger than us.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I have two more questions, please, from few women. Wafa, can I go ahead and take two of them?
Yeah, we can. Two maybe, yes.
Yes. So Ritu Agarwal, please.
I know she's been trying.
Yes.
So yeah.
Sorry.
Quite right. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Ritu.
So my company's name is Da Big Hotel Store. We cater to hospitality industry. Initially, when I started this business, it was a pure trading business, B2B. Gradually, we shifted from trading to manufacturing. We added a manufacturing unit also where we plan and design the commercial kitchens for hospitality sector. Now the problem we face, we have a very good brand recognition in the market, but our customers still recognize as a big hotel store, that we are a store owner. We don't, when we explain that we also manufacture, so यहाँ हमको थोड़ा problem होता है. How to change this brand perception?
Your customer persona, Ritu, in the two cases are different.
Okay.
Because the store is a different customer who you are expecting to walk into your store and do your purchase. Whereas when you are designing the kitchens, there is a different customer persona who you are looking at.
No, sir. It's the same customer.
Then where is the problem? So whether you are manufacturing or you're not manufacturing, earlier you were selling products which were manufactured by somebody else, Now you're manufacturing and selling them. So the line, the brand on the product has changed, and hopefully the margins that you're making has changed. Because you are now making
and
more
in
money.
Our industry, people give preference to manufacturer. If we go for tenders and all, so we get advantage. But problem is here is how to change that perception only.
But what is the perception you want to change? You were always selling good quality products.
We want to establish as a manufacturer also.
So just one small communication that these are manufactured by us. All that. So your offering, as I understand earlier, was also we were giving you good quality products. What has changed now is I'm still giving you good quality products, and they are actually even better. That's right. They are even better because my control on the manufacturing line is also fully with me. Earlier, I was relying on quality from somebody else. Now I don't have to rely on that quality from someone else. I am full control of the whole manufacturing process. So you don't need to create anything different. Just add that small piece.
Line.
That's right. That it's manufactured by us.
Okay.
All the way.
Thank you so much, sir.
So you don't need to really make a big difference there.
So, sir, this is last question of the day is from Meghna, Crisscross Lingo.
Yeah.
Yes, Meghna.
That was an excellent session. I'm so happy to get so much knowledge and so much insight. But I have a small question. I'm into the service industry of teaching foreign languages. So
you got muted. We can't hear you now.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was a great insight about the workshop. It was excellent. And I have a small question on my mind because I'm into service industry and I'm into teaching foreign languages. So we have we are all over the globe. We have, our brand is recognized all over the globe. We get a lot of inquiries from everywhere, but out of the inquiries, say only 30% of it actually do take up the classes, right? There is one thing, they find the fees a little higher, but we provide good quality. The way we teach is as good as a personal tuition kind of a thing. Now, how do I convey this to the market? How do I tell them that this is, because we are charging a little more, rather at par of the other competitors in the market, but we teach to the point and we teach them perfectly, regardless of the other, which I have got a feedback from other classes.
No, so I think it goes back to, like I said earlier, that pricing objection only means two things. One, you're not catering to the right customer.
Okay.
And second, you haven't created the right value. Now, when you say foreign language, you have to go back and say which language, which customer segment, and what is it that they will get if they work with you as compared to, let's say, an Alliance France or some other place where I can learn the language. Where is it that you are creating a differentiation? That if you do your session with Crisscross, you said, right? Crisscross Lingo. So if you work with Crisscross Lingo, then this is what you get, which you will not get anywhere else. That differentiation, that USP is what you need to be able to powerfully convey and convey to the right people. See, 30% in an online space is a very good conversion, by the way. Because a lot of places today, when you do an online blast of marketing, you get, single digit conversion or 10%, 15% conversion. So if you're getting 30% conversion, by and large, it is good. But if you want to further improve it, then look at the customer persona and look at the benefits, that feature, advantage, benefit. Feature is I teach language, advantages, you'll get it easy with me and I'm the best, but what's the benefit? If you do it with me, you can get jobs in that language. If you do it with me, proficiency will go up. If you do it with me, what else will you get as a benefit?
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much. I've got a little more clear and would love to personally get in touch with you. I've noted down your number and I'll call you soon.
Sure. WhatsApp is the best way to reach out and LinkedIn is the best way. I put my LinkedIn this thing on the chat window, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Most of us as professionals should connect on LinkedIn. That's the best platform. You can get to know. I also write, so all of those are available on LinkedIn, so you'll get to read them and benefit from them.
Perfect. Thank you. And sorry, my video is not working.
That's all right. No problem.
All right.
Vivek
Thank
sir,
you so much.
Vivek sir, one
Yeah.
request. Can you please share today's PPT with us?
I'll send that across to the organizers. They can then,
Yeah. I'm Amita.
yeah,
You
sure.
can send it to me.
Yeah, perfect, Amita. I'll send it to you.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
So
Okay.
please share your LinkedIn again. Actually, I can't see it on the chat.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful session. And we truly appreciate your time and effort. Our
Thank you.
members got they were very happy with the session.
Thank you, and wish you all the best and do well and make the best out of this program, not just from facilitators or people like me who come, but I think there's a lot of learning you can get from each other. So reach out to each other. Each of you has a story, each of you has a brand, each of you has done a lot of things well. So there's a lot of learning you can have from each other. So wish you all the best. And like I said earlier, the world needs more women leaders. So go out, make a difference, change the world. Thank you.
sir.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, ladies, I kindly request all of you to fill in the feedback form. I put the feedback forms link and also put it in the group also. So please do give us your feedback. And the next session on Saturday is a very important session on Business Canvas, which is on 22nd July.
A small thing that I can tell you is I have a small suggestion. Can we, the She Rise group, have a personal kind of a Zoom meeting one day so that we know each other and we can help each other grow their...
Who's this?
This is Meghna from Ahmedabad. I'm
Hi,
also a
Meghna.
member. Yeah, so I was wondering if we could get to know all these people in the She Rise group in the WhatsApp. We know them, right? In case we have a Zoom meeting to know each other, and we can always, give some benefits to the other members also.
Yeah. Thank you, Meghna, for your suggestion. But one thing I would like to say, first of all, please change your name. It's like Crisscross Lingo.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. You told me your name. Otherwise, we were not able to mark you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
The other thing is, Meghna, we will soon have a peer interaction session with everyone on Zoom.
Yeah.
We'll update you about that.
Thank you so much. I would love to be a part of it. Thank you.
So we'll be planning that session in the coming week itself.
Okay.
We'll share the details with all of you.
So that we know each other's business and we can always give them reference. Okay. So we can help each other in that kind of a thing.
Yeah. And Meghna, before we start the session on every Saturday, we request everyone to join 20 minutes before.
Yeah.
And that time also we do networking, we know about each other. So maybe next time when there's a session on Saturday, you can join 20 minutes before.
Yeah. Today I missed it. I forgot.
Don't worry. But always change your name, display name on the screen.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for the lovely session. Thanks. Bye. Have a great day. Bye.
Over to you, Madhulika.
Yes, so please fill up the feedback form, and as you fill it up, you can start leaving. Thank you so much.
One last information that all those, and this is Renu from STEP, that all those who will finish the program will get certificates of the program. Thank you.
Excuse me. Is it possible to connect with the sir regarding a question that we had on WhatsApp or on a phone call?
So you can connect to him on WhatsApp. His numbers, we'll forward you the details. So you can connect to him on WhatsApp as sir said.
Okay, that would be wonderful.
I'll send in the LinkedIn. LinkedIn is here. I'll again resend it on the group.
I kind of did since I got it, but then I think I don't use it, so I'm not so. I think it would be better if we go for a WhatsApp.
I'll just put it in the group, and you can you have his details in LinkedIn. You can contact him through WhatsApp.
Sure. Thank you.
Sorry, I was on a call if I missed something.
Nothing much.
Okay. So today also, Madhulika, we had two people who were iPhone and iPhone 1 or iPhone 3.
Okay.
But today we had the maximum support from the community because everyone renamed themselves. Thank you everyone for this.
Yes, that's true.
We can stop recording.